But let's talk about the Pats draft overall, to be honest. I mean, I was happy with the draft, to be honest. You got the quarterback, you filled him in. We've talked a lot about him. But number two, you get Barmore. This guy is a beast, a run stopper. And honestly, talk about upside. This kid has a ton of upside. He's still so young. He's still developing in the middle. He's going to get great coaching when he comes to the Patriots. Another Alabama player that we scooped. So it was roll tide in New England and in Foxborough on draft day. But I think Christian Barmore might be the best pick that they made that day. And I think Christian Barmore is a guy that's going to come in and help this team right away, immediately, place him in there on the defensive line, let him rush the quarterback, let him stuff the run, because he's just built to do that right away. And like I said, I think he is going to develop. But then we got some other great players down the line. And honestly, McGrone out of Michigan, I think is going to be a great fit for the system. He can move around, one of those linebackers that can go end to end and edge to edge, can play in pretty much the middle or the outside. So I think you've got a versatile linebacker there. But honestly, besides Barmore, the most excited guy I'm excited about is another Bledsoe coming to New England. And Bledsoe, the defensive back there, man, he is going to fly around. This is a kid that can play any safety that you want. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety. And like we've talked about in the past, the McQuartie twins are aging. I don't think you're even going to get much out of them this year. I hope they prove me wrong. Please, McQuartie twins, make some plays, break up a pass or two, make an interception, come down and make some tackles in the box. But honestly, I think if you don't see them making plays, let's go to Bledsoe and put him in and replace one of those really fast, because this kid can play. Like I said, I think he can play any of the safety positions, but I also think you can move him outside and he could play corner if you really needed him to. So I just think he's really one of the most versatile defensive backs that was available in the draft, and he dropped right to us, and we were happy to get him. So I do think I'm happy with the Patriots draft overall. I do think that they got a lot of solid NFL players that are ready to go and help our team. A couple right now like Barmore, and then a couple in the future like a Mac Jones and like a Bledsoe possibly. But I think if I'm going to grade the Patriots draft overall, I'm going to give it a solid B+. I think it was a good B+ draft grade overall, and could have been better. And, we could have moved up and maybe got Fields, but I'm happy with the picks that we got. And I think they had a great draft overall, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these young guys can do going into the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think B+ is right on the money. You stole my thunder a little bit with McGrone. I think that was a great pick in the 5th round. He was a top 20, I think, high school football player coming out his senior year or something like that. Maybe it was top 100, because a linebacker top 20 is kind of tough. But great pedigree coming out as a high school football player, had a really nice career at Michigan. And then last year they started late because the Big Ten started later. Then he tore his ACL in November. So you have a guy who's very talented, but then tore his ACL. So teams didn't see as many games. Plus he's got an injury, so you're not going to take him earlier on. I'm hearing he probably was going to be a 3rd round pick if he didn't tear his ACL. So for an inside linebacker, little undersized, but can move, definitely can stick. I love the pick because they need another guy in there. I think Uche is more of an outside guy. So you add another Michigan guy to Uche and to Chase Winovich. But I think he can play next to Hightower, or he can replace Hightower if he has to, maybe a year or two from now, because I don't think Jawan Bentley is necessarily the next guy. But drafting overall for the Pats this year, with Jones, they just let the board dictate who they were going to take at 15, because once Jones was there, nobody else was there that I think they should have, they necessarily passed on. If Sir Patrick Surtain was there, I think they would have taken him over Jones, and there's a few other guys that they might have taken over Jones. But Jones was there. He was their best pick. Barmore, they sent a couple of 4th-round picks, I believe, to Cincinnati, went up and got Barmore because he dropped out of the 1st round. Ronnie Perkins was the guy in the 3rd round, a defensive end out of Oklahoma, who people thought was going to be a top 50 type of pick. And, projections a lot of times just don't mean anything. But he's an edge guy. He's about 6'2", 245, right around there. Really tough player out of Oklahoma. He dropped because he had that drug suspension. He smoked weed. I mean, get the hell out of here. Who cares? So he was suspended 6 games with Oklahoma. So I think that's why he dropped a little bit. I think he's going to be good for the Pats. He's not huge for that outside position, but can do it. And then, like you said, I mean, I think McGrone's great. The safeties, Bledsoe's going to be good. Even Trey Nixon, the wide receiver for Central Florida, who was the last pick or the Patriots' last pick. It was in the 7th round. I even said it even before Ernie Adams. They showed the video of Ernie Adams announcing it. He gives off some David Givens vibes to me. Just build and the outside receiver. So I can totally see that him being in play as well the next couple of years. So they didn't, reach for anybody. They actually found value later on in the draft for guys that probably should have been picked earlier, if not for something that, either off the field or just a little nitpick here and there. So I think they took advantage of the board, and they had a really nice draft, as far as we know. It's only a few days from the draft, so we're not going to know for 3 years. But again, I agree. I think it was a good draft, and I think especially their first 3 rounds, I think they did really well for what they had to give up and what they got as far as value.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think they went to value town, let's call it, and they got the value for their picks and moved up and got a couple of guys that dropped and were arguably better than where they even picked them. And so I think Barmore was one of them. Ronnie Perkins was another one. And I honestly think, producer Ben was showing running back Raymar Stevenson out of Oklahoma. This kid runs downhill, loves running people over. He's one of those backs that likes to bang, man. So I think that was a great solid pick for them too. So I think you're right. I think pretty much every pick that they made was a solid pick. I don't think any one of these guys are going to be a bust. And so I think that's why you've got a B+ draft there. It would have been an A, I think, if you had moved up and potentially gotten Fields, or maybe moved up and got maybe another edge rusher like a Jalen Phillips, because he even dropped down the board a little bit out of Miami. But honestly, I think they did a really good job with the picks that they had. They just decided, hey, we're going to take 15. We're going to take who's available there. We're going to, hey, Barmore dropped. Let's move up and get him. And then, hey, we're just going to play it out the rest of the way and take our picks. But for what they had and what was available, I do think they went to Value Town and got great value for their picks. And I'm really excited to see what this young class can do going forward in helping our team. Because like I said, I think a couple of them are ready to help now, and a couple of them are ready to help here in the near future. But I think we got great picks across the board. So I'm excited as a Patriots fan going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, you do have to question, if they did trade up for Fields, would they have been able to pick Barmore? It's hard. It's, you can do the math certain ways of what picks they were going to trade to get up to get Fields. We keep going back to this, but they would only have to have gone up 4 spots as opposed to, the Bears having to go up 9. So they wouldn't have had to have given up as much. I still think they would have had to give up a first rounder next year, which would have been the big one. And then you wonder if they would have had to give up this year's second. We'll see. I mean, that would have been a lot to move up 4 spots. But, only time will tell if that was the right move or not. I think it was. I think they had a great draft overall.